Hello and howdy, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours FM, episode number 104, where I am talking live with Peter Suhm. How are you, Peter?
I'm great, thank you. How about yourself?
Doing all right. As I was explaining to Peter before the show, you'll have to excuse my kind of oddball surroundings. I'm getting a new roof put on my house today after the previous one underwent some hail damage, and it's a very loud place to be. So I'm borrowing a friend's office, and there's not even a chair. I'm kind of perched on this weird stool thing. Anyhow, welcome to the show today. For those of you who are listening live, you can ask Peter questions using the hashtag OfficeFM over on Twitter, or if you're using the Google Q&A, excuse me, if you're watching over on Google, you can use the Google Q&A app to send your questions. Or if you're part of the new Office Hours community over at my.officehours.fm, you can post your questions there. There's a topic started for this episode. So with the preamble, let's get going. So Peter, we were first introduced by Tom McFarlane, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So, how'd you be so unfortunate as to know Tom?
We're internet friends, I would say. I never met him in person, but we were working together actually before I was even really getting involved in WordPress too much. I was writing blog posts about Laravel over in Tots, and Tom, at one point he became the editor over there for the code, like articles about coding over there. Mm-hmm. So I was working with him there, and then when I launched WP Pusher, he helped me spread the word out, and we talked a lot back and forth and worked together on a few small projects. So yeah, that's how I know him. That's also honestly how I started listening to your show when he was on here. So yeah, he really introduced us. He did.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad he did, because I've been stalking you a little bit, and you were actually, I appreciate some of the information that you provided beforehand on your background. And for those who haven't met you yet, you've been around the WordPress community for a long time, like 2007, 2008?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the community really, because I mean, I've been using WordPress since then, and I've been doing it for like freelance projects for clients and stuff. But WP Pusher, which is my thing now, is the first thing where I'm really like involved in the community as well. And it's only like 1.5 years ago that I really started to make an appearance here in this community. So that's why most people don't really know me, even though I've been around for a long time, and I've been knowing WordPress for a long time, almost 10 years, I guess.
Interesting. Okay, well, we're going to dig into that, not right at this moment, but I would like to dig in later about how involvement in community helps as part of your marketing efforts for WP Pusher. But to give folks some background, so you're obviously technical. You've been around WordPress, the code base, for a while. You mentioned Laravel. You're very active doing Laravel or development with Laravel. Can you share with the listeners a little bit of history in terms of some of the projects you've worked on, and
yeah, sure.
how you got to the kind of the story leading up to WP Pusher?
Yeah, sure. So I think I have a different experience than most WordPress developers, because WordPress wasn't my first, where I started programming. Like, I knew PHP and made websites before I knew there was anything called WordPress or a content management system even. So I was doing PHP, and then I started using WordPress. I think I was in high school when I started using WordPress. And that's also when I started doing freelance. So I'm only 26 years old now, and I've been doing WordPress for almost 10 years. So like, I started back when I was in high school. And when I only did that for like on a freelance basis while I was in school. So most of my professional career as like full-time employee and also as a freelancer later on has been mostly with other technologies such as Laravel, which is fairly new, so it's just the last years, and Ruby on Rails as well. I've been doing WordPress the whole time for like a few projects, and some of them have been running for a long time. And of course, like someone like me who likes entrepreneurship and stuff, we have tons of domains and tons of WordPress sites and all that stuff. So, but the thing that led me to create WP Pusher was all the stuff that came from those other communities, because in, for example, the Laravel community, like you wouldn't meet anyone who wasn't using Git or version control. So when at your daytime job or like your full-time gig, you use Git for the whole day, it's just as soon as you have to, work with one of those older projects that were still on WordPress, I was really missing all those things that were like I didn't have Git, I didn't have automatic deployments, all that stuff, and that's what led me to create WP Pusher. So after I was at a point where I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was at a point where I didn't have really anything going on, and I was actively looking for problems to solve, and it was just an obvious problem for me to solve because of that experience.
What?
That's what led up to it.
Tell me this, because I've heard it said a lot that in the world of developers, that WordPress developers or people that work with WordPress are a little bit lesser than, or maybe not quite as sophisticated as working with some other technologies. And you've kind of got a foot in both worlds. And you mentioned it's really, really interesting that not everybody is using version control in WordPress, and they're really the systems are a little bit more haphazard. Have you seen that contribute to outsiders, non-WordPress people's perspective of people that work with WordPress? Man, did that make sense?
Yeah, it did. But it's funny because I run the Laravel PHP user group here in Copenhagen, and I was running that also when I started WP Pusher, and people there, like, they're making fun of me. Like, what are you doing? Like, normally people are, doing WordPress work, and then they realize that there are other things like you can use except WordPress. But I was going the other way, and I think it gives me a unique, I don't know, experience or like point of view that many people don't have. But I think it really sucks that people have this perception of the WordPress community, because I understand where it comes from, because there are a lot of people in the WordPress world who call themselves developers without maybe really being developers. Maybe they're just buying themes for clients and unzipping them and using the customizer a little bit, and that's fine. That's great. People need that, but it's maybe not what you can consider developer. But at the same time, like, some of the most talented developers are working with WordPress, and I have, like, some of my good friends and some of the best developers I know are WordPress developers. So it really sucks, and I think the outside world could learn so much from WordPress community, both the community and the way, I feel like there is more like a pragmatic approach in the WordPress world, and maybe sometimes it's unintended, but it seems to be very pragmatic. And yeah.
Interesting. So for those that haven't gotten to use WP Pusher yet, and I actually, once I knew you were going to be a guest on the show, I went out and bought a copy to sort of play with it myself and see how it works. But
Which you didn't have to. I would give you a trial.
We're all about supporting each other in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. Are you hearing an echo, or is that just me?
I was earlier, but not now.
Okay. It's the basement echo.
Yeah, maybe.
For those who haven't gotten to check out WP Pusher, can you kind of explain in a nutshell what it does?
Yeah, sure. So in order to understand what WP Pusher does, you need to understand, of course, what version control is and what Git is. And very briefly, like, Git is a tool that you use to manage. Are you still there?
I'm still here, but apparently this is the light is motion activated in this room.
I can see your glasses.
Wow. Okay, let me wave my arm and see if it'll pick me up. Well, excuse me, Peter. I've got to migrate over here to the motion sensor to let it know that, there we go, I'm still here.
Whoa, it's like a scary movie.
Still here. Okay, well, apparently that's going to happen every 10 minutes, so I'll relocate to right here. Okay, you were saying you need to be familiar with Git.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be, if you're using version control, which a lot of people are starting to use in the WordPress world, which allows you to keep track of all the different versions of your code. Like every time you make a change, you can commit that, and that's sort of like a snapshot. I guess we can be maybe more technical later if people have questions or whatever. And it helps your team like work on different parts of the code at the same time, and later on merge those changes. And all that is great. And then you have great tools such as GitHub or Bitbucket where you can host all that Git. But the thing I was missing was a way to deploy that to like the actual WordPress install, because most WordPress sites are like cheap hosting with no Git binary running there. Even if there is one, it's just not that obvious how you need to set it up or whatever. So what WP Pusher does is that it's a plugin that you can install on your clients' websites if you're like a freelancer or an agency. And then you can install all the themes or plugins that you develop for them. You can install it with WP Pusher instead of, manually copying over the files or like uploading a zip. And then going forward, every time you commit something to the version control, WP Pusher will deploy that for you and update all your clients' websites. So that's what it does in a nutshell, I guess.
And that works with GitHub repositories and
Bitbucket.
Bitbucket, okay.
And GitLab as well, but most people are using GitHub or Bitbucket.
Okay. So that's where you are. You've launched your plugin, and you've got I guess what I'd call a freemium model. So there's a free basic version, and then you can do paid upgrades for. Is the paid version more features or just more sites? I can't remember.
It used to be more features, but now it's only. It's only free for open source now. So if your repositories are open to the public, you can use WP Pusher for free as well, because if you have a public repository, it's free on GitHub and Bitbucket as well. And someone is laughing. And if you have private code, then it's mostly for a commercial purpose, and then you also need a commercial WP Pusher license.
I don't know where the receipt holder is that he said to put this in. So.
Hey, would you like to say hello to the world? This is James.
Hi.
James, this is Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, how are you?
James is one of the brewers here at the Collective Brew Project.
We should have beer.
Yes, I should be having a beer right now.
It's 8 in the evening, so I should have beer.
Oh, you totally should be having a beer. So, okay, so that's the free version.
It's a premium model, definitely, yeah, but it's with a twist. But I guess we're going to talk about that.
And then the free version is not welcome in the WordPress repository. Can you explain how it violates sort of their terms?
Yeah, that was a huge bummer. So maybe I should just tell the full story of how I launched, and then because it was there in the beginning.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was just while I was making WP Pusher, I was in Thailand for about half a year, and in the beginning it was actually meant to be a software as a service. I was inspired by something in the Laravel world called Forge, where you can manage all your servers and all your GitHub repositories, etc. And then I wanted to do the same basically for WordPress. And while I was in Thailand, I met Bryce Adams, who is now a good friend. He works for Woo Themes and Automatic now. And I showed WP Pusher to him, and he thought it was really cool. But he kept telling me, and also afterwards, he kept tweeting me, dude, it doesn't need to be a SaaS. Like, why don't you just make it a plugin? It's simple enough to be a plugin. And I didn't want to listen for a few months, but then in the end, I realized that he was actually right. It could totally just be a plugin. So I refactored all the code, and I created a WordPress plugin. Came back from Thailand, and then in January 2015, I decided that it was now ready. I had the free version, and I had the paid version, which is what you need for that freemium model that most plugin developers have. And it was, I just needed to upload it to the repository, and then, I don't know, sales would start coming and I would be rich. So I uploaded it, and it was accepted, and I was really, really excited. and got a few downloads and few good reviews, etc. Some like people were tweeting about it. And then 5 days later, I got an email from Mickey Epstein. The subject was, your plugin has been removed from the WordPress.org. And I was like, what? So I opened the email, and it just said that we're really, really sorry. We think you have a great plugin, but it's like not compliant with our terms. So we misunderstood what it was doing. So it's not available. Like, we took it down. And I was 100% sure that it was a mistake, like a misunderstanding. So I didn't really like think much about it. I just wrote it back. I think like it's a mistake, like just put it up again. And then she referred to like their terms where it said that they can't support that people can install packages from other sources, basically. And I talked about them. I got talked about this a few times with them, and I got a few like different reasons. Like, one of them was that they see it as a competitor, and I get it. I mean, if technically it is a competitor to their directory, because as soon as you have WP Pusher installed, you can install everything that's on GitHub or Bitbucket. There's a lot of plugins there as well, and I guess they don't want to, like, they want to be in control, and they're afraid that they have to like have a support burden of like third-party stuff that they can't review and stuff like that. So I get it. It was just for a few hours when I realized it, it really sucked.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, obviously exposure to a massive audience.
That's the way to get traffic for your WordPress plugin. That's how everyone else does it.
So, well, everyone else, yes, who's going with that freemium model.
Yeah, of course.
So you were shut down, and for understandable reasons, and then now you're like, okay, well, crap, what's next? How am I going to get the word out about this plugin? So can you kind of take us from there about what your marketing efforts have looked like?
Yeah, sure. So it started as a huge disadvantage not being in the repository, because that's where most people, I mean, if you have the freemium model, of course, that's where you get your traffic. But I think quickly I realized that, well, it could also be an advantage, because what I did was that, like, after being sad for a few hours and, I don't know, feeling bad about myself, I put it on my own website instead. And then I asked people to give me their email address before they could download it. And I think like that was pretty reasonable. So like I had I needed a way. Like in the beginning, I didn't even have like a mechanism for sending out updates, which I needed now that I couldn't send them out through WordPress.org. So I was like, give me your email address and I'll send you an email if there's a new version or like a security issue or whatever. And so that way I started growing an email list, which was nice, because then I could, like, even though I didn't have I don't have a lot of downloads compared to like people I know who have their plugins in the official directory, but then I get like their email and I can like send them follow-up emails, like asking them if they have like, if there is anything I can do for them or if they're interested in the pro version. So that's sort of like the first thing I did. And that initial traction, that was just Twitter. I didn't have any like marketing, anything set up. But it was a huge challenge because, as I said, like, it's my first venture into like full-time WordPress and like the WordPress community. So I didn't have any, before creating WP Pusher, I didn't have anything in the WordPress repository. I didn't have like a popular blog. I didn't even know anyone who had anything in the repository. I didn't even know anyone who had a popular blog. So I started from scratch. I had like 70 followers on Twitter, and they were like Laravel people. So that's where I slowly I had to pick up the pieces and say, okay, what can I do with this? I had the plugin, but I just didn't have a channel to market it.
In retrospect, is there anything that you would have done differently in terms of kind of maybe determining that channel ahead of time? Like, had you known that it would never be in the repo?
I would have choose something else. If, like, in retrospect, I would choose something that could be in the repository, because it's just it's a great way to get traffic, and there are so many niches in there, and there's so much traffic and so many people to cater to. It's insane. And if I like was to start over, I would make something that was compliant. I just didn't have any clue that it wouldn't be.
So abandon WP Pusher altogether.
Yeah, if I had to start all the way, I would do that. Or I would do it differently. Like, I would find a way so it could be allowed in there. Like, people even like suggested I did like, try to go around it by having like, a plugin that actually didn't really do anything, and then just having the extensions not be allowed in the repository and then charge for them. But I just didn't like, if it's not meant to be there, it's not meant to be there. I don't want to, push it.
And sorry, there's kind of a lot of noise now, but did you did you know all along that this WordPress community existed, or was it sort of news to you that there is this entire kind of internal ecosystem or smaller subset of WordPress people that were highly connected?
I didn't know that. I was I was using WordPress for a long time, and like everyone here in Denmark was using it. Like every agency, every like company doing anything web related would use WordPress, at least for their own website. So I knew that WordPress was really big, but I had no idea that there was like an actual community, and like how successful people's businesses were. And like, I was using let's say, like, for example, I was using the SEO plugin by Yoast, but I just always thought it was like just one guy who just had like a plugin. I didn't know it was like a whole company with like employees and stuff. So I had no idea what I was like going into.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you're liking what you've stumbled into. Jackie has a question. She says, any suggestions for WordPress developers who are not using Git to get started with it?
Yeah, actually I do. One of the marketing efforts I did was back in December. I launched a free video course on Git for WordPress developers. So if you go to gitforwp.com, you have like almost 2 hours of free videos with me rambling about Git, and it starts completely from scratch. But like, what I want to say about it is that Git, it can seem really intimidating, but for everyday use, we're talking like 3 to 4, maybe 5 commands you need to know, and that's like it. I mean, you will have situations where you end up in some kind of mess and you need a few extra commands, but then you go to Stack Overflow or like send me an email or something like that, and then it's going to work out. But for everyday use, it's pretty simple. Like, it's just a few commands you need to learn.
I can say that I have gotten myself into those messes and had to go to Stack Overflow.
We all have. I still do it. Like, there are just some things that are just, I don't even want to learn, because it just happens once in a while, and you just Google it, and then, yeah, it's fine. It's always going to be fine. If you use Git, everything is going to be fine, because that's how it works.
Yes, you can always roll back to.
Yeah, you can always find someone who knows more about you, and they can get you out of your mess.
Yes. I've had plenty of people who have saved me from my messes out there. Okay, so you said gitforwp.com.
Yeah, for like the number.
Okay, awesome. And then Jackie is posting some resources over on Twitter. So if you're not following the hashtag OfficeFM, you can go look that up and see some of the links she's got there. And we'll also try to get those into the show notes. For those of you who are joining the party a little bit late, hello and welcome. I'm chatting with Peter Suhm over in Copenhagen, and we're talking about his plugin, WP Pusher, and his marketing efforts behind it. So at this point, I mean, you're starting to get a little traction. You've got your email list. You're getting involved in the community, trying to meet people. What else
It's
is
still
on
very
your?
little at this time, though.
What's that?
It's still very little at this time in the beginning.
Okay.
So I really need to do something.
No, do you have a specific plan of attack, or are you just sort of doing what a lot of us do, just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks?
So like a month in, I wrote actually a blog post on my own blog about like the plugin being taken down and what I would do instead. And I read these long PDF guides on content marketing. And it's like, oh, this sounds great. Like I can just start blogging and then like that'll be my traction channel. So I wrote a post about this that I was gonna like, I'm gonna do content marketing. It's all gonna be fine. Don't worry. Like I'm still alive. And I posted the article one night, and then the day after, like the next morning, when I woke up, I was still in bed. I checked my notifications, and someone tagged me on Twitter, and like still like didn't have any Twitter followers or anything. But someone tagged me on Twitter. They apparently found my handle, and they said that, oh, it looks like the WP Tavern wrote about WP Pusher. And at that time, like I didn't know what the WP Tavern was. So I just went to the website and I went to the About page, and I realized that it's actually one of the like probably the largest news site about WordPress, and it's owned by Matt Mullenweg, the guy who created WordPress. So at least I knew his name. So I realized that this was pretty nice. And Sarah Gooding over there, she wrote a really great article about WP Pusher, and it gave me a few visitors, and not as many as I would actually have expected, but I still got like 100 downloads just from there. And which was like, I think they sent over 500 people, and that was 100 downloads. So it's like 20% conversion rate. So I was like, this is great, actually. I mean, I have a good conversion rate, and people seem to like it. People wrote nice comments, and yeah, I realized that content marketing was a great channel, maybe because it worked like even before I started doing it. Just by posting that blog post, it magically happened the day after that someone wrote about me. And then I think I hit her up on Twitter afterwards, and we started talking back and forth. And I ended up becoming a guest blogger for them as well. I think I've been writing about 5 or 6 posts over there. And she also writes like when there is news about like any of my projects. So it's been really great kind of relationship. And so that was one thing. Then I realized that content marketing is great. And the main takeaway actually was that I never talked to her before she wrote that article. But when you read it, it sounds like she interviewed me, because I already started putting up a lot of content on my own website and on the WP Pusher blog. And that's like, she found that, and the content, like the kind of content I put up there, made it really easy for her to write about me. So I realized that if you want people to talk about you, you need to make it really easy for them, and just make sure that there is something they can talk about, and just sort of like facilitate it.
That's excellent
like,
advice.
Yeah, I count that as the day I launched, because it was like it was like reborn when she wrote that article. I had like people coming to the website, and yeah, it was great. I still get a lot of traffic from that article, actually.
That's awesome. So you got a little a boost or a Kickstarter.
Yeah, definitely.
Is the Get for WP course that you created, was that part of your content marketing efforts, or was that something else?
It definitely was. It was definitely a part of that. I think last summer, it was last summer, right, when there was the WordCamp Europe conference. I think maybe it was while I was there. I launched an email course, and it wasn't really intended. It was just, if you know Drip, the email software, I signed up for that, and they advised that you do like a 5-day crash course on something just to capture emails. And I wrote like 5 emails like about how to get started learning Git, and I just put the form up on the website, and I tweeted like, hey, free course, 5-day course on Git for WordPress. And then Sarah over at WP Tavern, she wrote about it. I didn't even ask her like to write about it. She just wrote like WP Pusher launches this free crash course. So like I didn't put that much into it. I mean, I wrote probably great emails, but I just thought of it as like a lead magnet. But she saw it in a different way. She's like, oh, it's like a free resource you're giving away and it's like valuable. So she wrote a post about it, and I got like 600 or 700 emails in just like a few days. And I just started realizing some of these, I don't know, like this content creation, even though it might be like pretty simple content and it's just a few days of work, it can be pretty powerful. So I wanted to just make something that was even more valuable, and that would be videos. And I thought it'd be fun also to do like screencasts, and maybe it'd be faster than writing. I think I was maybe wrong, but yeah, it took way too long. It took so long to make those videos. There's 35 videos now. No, there's 36 actually, because my friend Danny from MailChimp for WordPress, he made one as well. Thankful for that.
Yeah, that is a lot of videos, and I can attest, it always takes longer than you think it will.
Long.
Wow. Okay, so you've got several things going on. You got the write-up at WP Tavern. You created the e-course, or the email crash course, and set up a drip campaign to get some subscribers on your list.
Yeah.
You've got the course, or the video course.
And I swear, like, there's no better feeling in the world than when you get a sale and you log into Drip and you see like you look up the email you get like from the sale, and you see like, like 2 months back, like this guy, he signed up for the crash course, and then like a few days later he got another email, and then he signed up for this, and then he got another email, and then he downloaded the free version, and then he used that for like a few days, he was using that, and then like there is the like he bought the pro version, and it's just, it feels so good when you see it working. It's really the best.
So anywhere in your email course are you talking about that, like, does the course kind of culminate in how about download WP Pusher and give it a try? Or I mean, how are you working a sales call into there?
Very little. Like, my main objective with the course is to provide a lot of value, like, and also of course getting the email. I feel like if I get the email and if I provide value, then it's going to be obvious at one point if they need, if they need a deployment tool or like to help them with Git, it's going to be obvious for them to choose WP Pusher. But I'm not trying to like hard sell it or anything. I mean, I have it in my signature, like creator of WP Pusher or whatever, and I mention it maybe like 1 or 2 times. I think the most important, like if you want people to recommend it, and if you want like Sarah to write about it on the Tavern, it has to be value and not like a hard sell.
You should send Sarah some cookies or craft beer. I'm pretty sure she's a big craft beer fan.
I definitely should. Hey, I write free content for her as well.
Hey, there you go. Other than Twitter, do you have any other social media outlets that have played a role in your marketing for WP Pusher?
No, I don't. I have a Facebook page, but I never use it actively. I'm experimenting with paid ads on Facebook now, but not for, like, Twitter has been huge for me.
How's the paid ads experiment going?
It's like, I'm keeping it because it's still like a positive ROI, but it's nothing compared to the content marketing. That's where most of the people come in. I think it's because I don't have enough traffic to have like a big enough audience. But yeah, it's the paid advertising I'm doing is only retargeting. It makes a lot of sense. Like, if you visited, like, I have like a special landing page for agencies, and they have like more expensive plans. So if people read that page, I just retarget them on Facebook, and just like I have a few retargeting rules set up.
And
it's
how did?
Easy, like, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how did you learn about like how to set up Facebook ads and the retargeting and such?
I was like, I don't know anything about it really. So first I signed up for one service and I just couldn't figure it out. And I didn't want to spend too much time on it. And they weren't really helpful. But then I found, are you still there? Gary?
Did you miss me?
Yeah, I did. I was just about to do a WP Pusher promotion.
Hey, you know what? If I leave you on the air by yourself, you got to do what you got to do. I apologize for that. Did I?
No, but then I found a service called Perfect Audience, and it's just like a few clicks. It's really simple, and it hasn't been huge for me or anything, but I just keep it running now, and then yeah. I don't know, even if people don't convert, I think it's fine that they see like my ads on Facebook, whatever.
It's all getting your name out there.
Yeah, it is. But content marketing, that's been the main thing. And those guest posts on the tavern, they're pretty good as well. Just because they rank well in Google for like everything you write about. Like my own website doesn't rank for WordPress Git, for example, those two keywords. But if you search for them on Google, one article I wrote on the tavern is like 1 or 2. So it makes sense to be there. Like,
most definitely.
And it's nice for Sarah. Like, you have to think about it. She has to write 1 or 2 articles a day, and she has to come up with something to say every day. So whenever someone like sends her a pitch for an article, she doesn't have to write. She only have to like edit it and make sure, like, as I said earlier, my Dinglish is like the language works for the article, and it's pretty nice for her as well. So I think it's you can do that many places.
That's a good suggestion as well. So either pitching yourself as a guest writer, or just pitching something that you're working on, a product or service, as a potential subject matter for an article.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got a question from Jackie and Ginger. Who is the ideal customer for WP Pusher, and how do they use it in their workflow? This is where you get to do your commercial.
Yeah, it is. The ideal customer is like either a freelancer or someone working at an agency, and they are using Git to manage their plugins or themes. So they're doing custom themes or custom plugins for their clients, and they're hosting them on either GitHub or Bitbucket. And they're my ideal customer if they're tired of manually copying files over FTP, or I don't know, zipping them up and uploading them. And like that's my client group. Like the main client group is freelancers and small agencies. I have a few theme shops as well, and they use it to keep all their demos up to date on their, like if they have like 30 demos on a site, you want to keep them up to date, and they use Pusher for that, or WP Pusher. I always call it Pusher, but I should say the full name when I'm on here.
You got to be consistent in that branding, Peter.
Yeah, I know. Too bad.
And this sort of addresses a question that Ed has. But to be clear, WP Pusher is only taking files from one location to another. It's not touching the WordPress database in any way.
It's touching the WordPress database. It has its own table there. But it's actually, even though it's called WP Pusher, maybe it should have been called WP Puller, because it's actually only pulling the files. It's not pushing anything. It's just how it works behind the scenes is that it's generating like a zip file from say GitHub, and then it sort of like extends the built-in updater that you already have in WordPress. It tricks it to install this zip file instead of one from WordPress.org, for example. So that's how it works. it's very like it's very native to WordPress in the sense that it extends the already existing updater in there. It only uses the database to like metadata about the plugins you have installed, etc.
Curious, why did you decide to add a table to the database rather than working with the existing structure?
I decided to do it because I felt like it was a cleaner solution, maybe, and I'm not in some ways I see how it's beneficial to use maybe the posts table, but then at the same time it itches my eyes. Like, why would you use the posts table for something that's not a post? And I don't know. I've talked to a few people about it, and all of them are like, "Oh, you were so lucky that you didn't use the post table because it's just trouble all the time for like plugins that are using it." I find it weird. Like, the IDs are so inconsistent when you have like so many different things. I think Pippin wrote a post about it as well, about how he kind of regretted it for EDD. I'm not sure if I remember right, but something
I'm
like that.
pretty sure I recall reading that post. Yeah, I was
But I
just
probably
curious.
didn't think too much about it because I was very fresh to like I would never know that there was a debate about this when I started WP Pusher, because I didn't know much about like where people would have that debate if they were having it.
See, and that's a real benefit. You were able to kind of step in and build something without the not the drama, but the all these discussions going on about it's bad to add extra tables. No, it's not bad.
One thing I'm still not sure about, just to like stay in this maybe this theme, I'm also not following the code guidelines for WordPress, because I was like most of the rest, like the rest of the PHP world, they're using something called PSR2. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's another coding standard. So actually, WP Pusher is compliant with that standard, but then again, it's not really open source, like in the sense that people can submit a pull request. So it probably doesn't matter that much. I also use spaces and not tabs.
Okay, we can't be friends. Tabs for the win. So looking forward, do you have kind of some milestones or goals laid out of where you would like to be in terms of sales or your email list size, 6 months from now or a year from now, or what's on the horizon?
Yeah, that's a big question. A question that I spend most of my time thinking about these days. So like my first goal was to get to a point where I could live off of WP Pusher. And I'm there now. I also have a pretty cheap lifestyle, I should say. Like, I don't, we haven't talked about that much, but I'm traveling most of the time. So like living almost kind of like a nomadic lifestyle. So I don't have a fixed rent I pay. Like, I don't have many fixed costs. And most of the time I'm just myself. So, I mean, I don't have any expensive habits or whatever, but it's generating enough money now that I can live off of it. So that's like the first big milestone, and that's like really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. But it's not making me rich. Like, it's not a huge, startup or anything, like a unicorn or something. But so that's actually what I'm trying to figure out now. Like, what's the next step? Am I growing WP Pusher more? Like, of course, it's growing a little bit every month. Or am I like adding to the tool belt, like adding more products? Or am I like working on like a completely new thing? Because most of the work I do in WP Pusher right now is not development, because it's pretty feature rich already. And I mean, I get really good feedback. People really seem to like it. And I mean, when they try it the first time, like 2 people, I put them on my website. They used #mindblown on Twitter after they tried it. I love when that happens. So, I mean, I don't add a lot of features and I don't do a lot of development. Most of my time is actually marketing. So just trying to figure out like what the next steps are. I have a few mentors, or like like mentors basically, that I kind of work with, like entrepreneurs I know that are a lot more successful than me, like a lot more successful, and they give me advice, and they're like helping me figuring out like how big is the potential here. And I think it's pretty big actually, because Git is still, especially when I launched it, it was kind of premature for the WordPress market in many ways. A lot of people didn't even know what Git was or why they should use it. Maybe they heard about SVN because Core uses it.
I don't think that's the case.
Well,
I think there was just no version control for most.
Yeah, I think so too. But the thing is, there's always version control. It's just not a proper tool like Git. There's always like copying files over in other folders and like naming them something else. So it's good that people are starting to pick up Git.
The mentors that you mentioned are other successful entrepreneurs. How did you find those people and get into that mentoring relationship?
One was through a freelancer engagement. I've been working freelance for him for a few years, like on and off, and so we just kind of became friends. And he, I guess, saw some potential maybe, because for the last 1.5 years I haven't been doing WP Pusher full time. Like last fall I was involved, like most of my time was spent on another startup project that I thought maybe was going to be a unicorn, but it didn't. And he was like he was meant to be the investor there, but we didn't make it like that far. But I've been working together with him on a few projects, both freelance and like as like my own like startup thing. And the other one was actually just someone in the forum asking for like people he could mentor, because he had like a successful bootstrap business, and he was like had like a good solid 5-figure revenue every month, and he was like looking for just like do something else, and he would like to mentor people, or like coach maybe, I don't know. So it's not a very the relationship we have is not very like defined or anything, but it's just we have like Skype calls, and I tell them about the problems I have, and they're like, but you should be thinking bigger, and you should do this. They always tell me I should call people, like more of my users, and have more conversations.
That's awesome that you have that.
Yeah.
Let's see, Jackie's got a question for you. She says, how do you see the plugin market evolving, and do you see a trend away from the WordPress repo?
I think people don't realize how big opportunities there are in the plugin world. And I wrote an article about this called "Is a WordPress Plugin a Startup?", which was over in the tavern as well. And I think people need to realize that the WordPress market is really, really huge. It's so huge that something you built for WordPress can be just as big as any other software product you ever come up with, because there are so many people using it. And even like enterprise, like I have pretty big companies using WP Pusher, and unfortunately I don't have like a huge enterprise plan or anything to put them in, because I'm just like a small solopreneur. But there are huge opportunities, and like some of my really good friends now are people who are very successful with the plugins they have in the .org repository, and that's their channel. That's where they get their customers from. That's from WordPress.org. And they don't do marketing except that. Like they do marketing inside of their free plugins, and they make 20, 30 grand, like US dollars every month. And it's just, people don't realize how much potential there is in that repository. It's one of the biggest search engines in the world.
Well, Peter, I hate to cut this interview short, but I'm going to go create a freemium plugin right now to get up.
And you know what I should? I should be creating that. I should be finishing my talk for WordCamp Denmark, which is in 2 days.
Oh, Well, I hope that none of the organizers are listening to this right now and know that you're a little bit behind on your notes.
Yeah, I have to keep my priorities right. I had this interview.
Well, I do appreciate you coming. It is late at night there for you, or at least late evening. Devinder asked, how do you gather and refine feedback provided by WP Pusher customers? Or do you take that into account? You mentioned you're not doing a whole lot of feature ads, but how does user feedback play into it?
I don't have a good way of it, actually, so I probably should have that. My documentation is on GitHub, and I encourage people to just submit like an issue there, or just set, like I put my email address everywhere, so I just try to get people to send me email addresses. But one thing I've done a lot, which I haven't mentioned yet, is sending people just like an email asking if there's anything I can do, or if like they have any ideas or suggestion. And in every email I send, I always like include like, please let me know if there's like anything I can do for you, if there's anything WordPress or Git related I can help you with, or I ask for like I get their email when they download the plugin, so I also send them an email a week later where I ask like what they think. But so it's all email based. I don't have like a form anywhere. There's no like place in the plugin where they can submit it. One thing I did that was really great was that I hired a girl in the Philippines, which was she's so awesome. She speaks great English, and she's really like organized and everything, and she's been helping me a lot with my email lists. And basically I had her go through all of my almost all of the people who signed up for my email address, and just trying to find out like who they were, because a lot of them, they have like, you know, their company domain in their email address, so it's easy to have someone like her go to their website and like check their about page and like find out what role they have. And there are other tools you can use to like do that with a Gmail account or like a Hotmail or something like that. So she made like a giant spreadsheet where I like this guy is working for an agency, this guy owns an agency, this guy is a developer. So I could send like very targeted emails to those people and like asking them like, how is, like I noticed you run a freelance business, like how is WP Pusher working for you? Do you have, or like if they watch my courses, like are there any questions you might have about Git that I could help answering? That's been really great, like a great way to get in touch with people.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's a little creepy that you went and stalked your customers, but that is a really great, when you can target emails specifically based on what you know that person will be interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure your response rate goes up tremendously than just the same blanket email to everyone.
It does.
How did you find the girl in the Philippines to work with?
It was an Upwork, actually. And I gave up before, like I almost gave up, because the people who applied for that position was just like not the people I would want to like to potentially interact with my customers and stuff. So I chose the one who didn't like write me and say, "Greetings, Sir Peter," and instead just said like, "Hi, Peter, how are you?" That's how I chose her. And then I gave them a small like a task. I like the best of like 5. I asked them to find a WordPress agency that have a profile on GitHub, or one of the employees have a profile on GitHub. And she found the same agency and the same GitHub profile that I did when I tried it just myself to see how easy it was. So yeah, it was a no-brainer.
Cool. Got another question here. What is your, because we're going to talk about SaaS, software as a service, and you mentioned earlier that was your original intention with WP Pusher, but then it made sense just to do a plugin. What are your thoughts in general on using that software as a service model to deliver plugin functionality or that feature to a customer?
In general, I'm like everyone else, I'm really excited about SaaS. But I also acknowledge that it's really hard to run a SaaS. It's a lot. it's a lot more tricky. You need to provide a lot of value in order to be able to charge recurring like that. And it's just also like there are pros and cons. Like obvious pro is that you run the server and you run the code, so you know like the environment. But then again, you also have to like care a lot about uptime and servers and all that stuff. But I think for a plugin, I mean, the thing was that WP Pusher at the time was a plugin, but it was also a SaaS. So like all the managing of the themes and plugins was in the SaaS, but all the work was done by the plugin. Because actually one of the reasons why I created WP Pusher was because the existing tools out there, like when you signed up, you had to give them like your FTP credentials or your SSH credentials, something like that. And I mean, I don't want to give people my FTP credentials if they write, I don't know, if they have a bug, they're gonna like send a buggy script over FTP to my server, and like I don't want to do that. I want it to be a plugin. I just want it to be like native WordPress stuff. And now, so it was a plugin that did all the work, but just it was like controlled from the SaaS. And then in the end, like it didn't really make any sense not to just put the rest of this like stuff over in the plugin. So I think you need to like really have to justify it to make it a SaaS. If it's simple enough that it can be a plugin, I mean, you shouldn't make it a SaaS just because you think you can make more money. Like that's the wrong reason to do it, I think. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, I think I enjoyed that, and especially your last comment that just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
No, and also there's if you know Rob Walling, the founder of Drip, he always talks about what he calls the stair-stepping model. And one of the examples he always provides is that like you start with something simple, maybe like an ebook or a WordPress plugin, where you just put it in the official repository, because then you don't have to worry that much about traction, because if it's good, it's probably going to get some traction from there. And that was my intention as well. It didn't work out that well, but you should have some experience selling something and asking for money and supporting customers and running like a business before you launch a SaaS. That's important, I think. Otherwise, there's just so much you don't know. And if it's a SaaS, it's hard to use maybe the repository as your main traction, and that's just a huge advantage if you can rank for something, even if it's a small niche in there, it's good. Like you should aim to do that. And then when you learn that traction channel, you can start looking into other traction channels. And when you know like 2 or 3 channels, how they work, maybe like paid advertising or content marketing or whatever, then maybe you can consider starting a SaaS. But I think it's great to start with something more simple.
And you've heard it, ladies and gentlemen, Peter's advice on getting started. And I think that's actually fantastic advice. We are coming up on the end of the hour. If anybody has another question for Peter, get it in lickety-split or it'll be too late. I did want to mention again, the new Office Hours FM community. You can check that out over at my.officehours.fm or my.officehours.fm. Some great conversations going on there. I post exclusive content that's not anywhere else. Yesterday, actually, I had a great interview with Diane Kinney on the topic of creating and publishing ebooks. So you can actually check that out for free right now. I've got a free 30-day trial rolling over there. You can also pick up an Office Hours t-shirt or mug if you're feeling swaggy. So let's see. Let me check all my little question channels, and I think.
Carrie, are you going to be at WordCamp Europe?
Oh, I would sure love to, but my company party of one can't quite swing that trip yet. Maybe if I had a freemium plugin in the .org repo, I could.
Yeah, then you would be made. You made it.
Well, what do you
think about? Listeners are coming to WordCamp Europe, they should find me there and say hi.
Awesome. Yeah. So folks that are tuning in, I think I stepped on your sentence a little bit there, but yeah, find Peter at WordCamp Europe if you're going and say hello. And if people aren't going and are just hanging out online, Peter, where can they find you to say hello?
They can find me on Twitter, just Peter Suhm on Twitter, and they can learn more about my business at wppusher.com. And if they want to learn some Git, there is the Git for WP.com website. It's all free.
Awesome.
Just your email.
And I'll have we'll have those links that we just mentioned in the show notes for this episode over at officehours.fm.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
If you're listening and you didn't get to ask a question, just feel free to send me an email. If it's about Git or WordPress or anything we talked about, it's just peter@wppusher.com. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I hope some folks will take you up on that. All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for your time today. I will let you go so that you can crack a cold, refreshing beverage and work on your presentation.
Thanks a lot. It was great fun.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.